Hello, welcome to another video from Ibex Solar. In this video, we will be reviewing the COVID-19 relief package that was announced by the Finance Minister Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman last week. This analysis is split into three parts. First, we will do a deep dive into the relief package. Then, we will talk about some of the strategic aspects covered in these announcements. And finally, we will try to assess the impacts of these measures on the renewables industry and the environment in general. Here is a comprehensive list of all the relief measures, whether they are a fiscal stimulus or a liquidity improvement measure, which sector of the economy will be impacted, and the rupee value of the measure. Few things to highlight here are: 1. The total stimulus is about 22 lakh crores, which is roughly 10% of India's GDP. Number 2. A large chunk of the fiscal stimulus is directed towards agriculture and individual citizens. There is no allocation for bailing out large corporations, as was the case in the announcements from the US and the UK. We touched upon fiscal stimulus and liquidity measures earlier. Fiscal stimulus means that the government needs to create new money or identify some other way to fund that particular item, whereas a liquidity measure ensures that there is more money in circulation without needing to create new money. In the COVID-19 relief package, we can see that about two-thirds is fiscal stimulus and the remaining one-third is liquidity measures. This chart shows which sector gets what type of stimulus. We can observe that a big part of liquidity improvements are directed towards the financial institutions such as banks and NBFCs, which makes sense since the financial institutions are responsible to ensure liquidity in the economy. Within fiscal stimulus, key thing to highlight, besides the aforementioned agriculture and individual packages, is the 90,000 crore given to electricity distribution companies. This would alleviate pressure on the distribution companies to pay the upstream generation companies. This would provide much needed short-term stability in the electricity industry. So how good or bad is this 22 lakh crore relief package? In order to answer that question, we decided to benchmark this against other countries which have also announced their own relief packages. Specifically, we looked at the BRIC countries because they are considered to be in the same peer group as that of India. From this graph and the adjoining table, we can see that India has allocated the most as a percentage of its GDP towards recovering from this pandemic. Let's move on to the second part of this discussion, where we will cover some of the visionary and strategic aspects that were discussed by the Finance Minister in her meetings. The Prime Minister propounded his vision of making India Atmanirbhar or self-reliant, but clarified that this not only means self-reliant but also become a stronger player in global politics and economics. Reading between the lines, the vision is to seize the opportunity that has arisen due to the general unhappiness of the developed countries towards China in its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, and attempts by some of them to de-risk the supply chains by collaborating with India. Let us take a look at one of the measures, which is to upgrade our industrial infrastructure. Projects will be fast-tracked by requiring a committee of secretaries rather than wait for the respective ministries' approval. A project office will prioritize projects and coordinate between the investors and the government. Common facilities and connectivity of industrial clusters will be upgraded on a challenge mode. An initiative to manage all information about all industrial zones in a single website has been kicked off. This dashboard currently documents 3,381 industrial clusters and provides several information that will be useful to someone who wants to start a factory. Also, the system wants to make it competitive by ranking each facility on several parameters. The Finance Minister announced many initiatives to encourage private participation and liberalize many industries. For example, in mining, private companies will now be allowed to explore and produce coal and aluminium. Extraction of coal bed methane will be privatized. In defense, corporatization of government-run ordnance factory will be taken up, and import of certain weapons will be banned in order to encourage manufacturing them within India. In aerospace, more of India's airspace will be made available for civilian flights. Many airports will be developed on a PPP model. And maintain, repair and overhaul MRO part of the aviation industry will be encouraged to set up operations in India. In the electricity sector, discoms will be penalized for load shedding and discoms in union territories will be privatized. And finally, in space, ISRO's facilities will be opened up for private companies. With IBEX being a clean tech company, we decided to see what is there for us in this relief package. As per latest reports, India's new solar installations declined 43% in Q1 2020 compared to the previous year. But the relief package doesn't include any direct subsidies to the industry. The only positive announcement was it considering the solar PV manufacturing and battery storage to be new champion sectors. We will need to see what the incentives will be for this sector. As far as the environment is concerned, privatization of coal mining and support for coal gasification and coal bed methane through subsidies will certainly lead to more carbon emissions. I expect environment groups to assess whether this will impact India's Paris 2030 climate commitments. We do realize that India's current Paris Agreement does factor in an uptick in coal consumption. But with price of electricity from solar now becoming cheaper than from coal, there was an opportunity to aggressively push to greenify our electric grid. Such a transformation would have helped avert another impending disaster in the making, that is, climate change. So, what did you feel about this relief package? Please let us know in the comments below. Thank you and have a nice day.